Welcome back, everybody. This is Troy Full with Pinnacle Investments and the Propelio Academy, and we're up for another session of investing in notes. So I just shared with you guys the different breakdowns of what you can do with a note in regards to, say, taking a simple note, getting 10% down, 20% down, 30% down, and what it would look like. Now let's talk about, you've done all those things. You've done your marketing, you've done your title work, you've done your appraisal, you've got your buyer, you've done your 1003, you've done your RMLO, you've done all of those things. And now all of a sudden you've had it in your portfolio, and now you want to go sell it. Okay? Now you want to go sell it. You've had it for a couple of months, couple of years, whatever that might be, but now it's time to, exercise your time value of money option. What does that look like? What does that look like in the open place? What does that look like in the marketplace? Now, there's two things that you can do, and there's two ways. Well, let me just track with this on this episode, and I'll come back to what I call wholesaling notes. I'll do a wholesaling notes episode. But this is for those people that own the note, okay? They own the note. They had it for a couple of years. They enjoyed it for a couple of years, and now all of a sudden they need that money because guess what just came on the market? A brand new boat. And now you want to go buy a new boat, and you need some cash because your wife isn't going to let you finance it. And now figure if you can pay cash for it, she'll let you do that. Well, so be it. That's one why in a guy's eyes. So that being the case, run out there, you can sell your note. So I have in front of me what I call our note purchase calculator. Now, note purchase calculator can be used for a lot of different scenarios in our business. I'm going to jump over here real quick. And this one here I put in place, okay, similar to the terms that we were just talking about. So on my previous episode here, we were talking about a $100,000 note. Actually, it was a $90,000 note, so we'll just say $90,000, not to confuse matters. And we got a 7.5% rate, so let's just put 7% back in there on 360-month terms. So let's just decide at the end of the day, you went through your marketing strategies, you fixed up the house, you did all those things, you marketed it, you had an open house, you baked some cookies, you put some, cinnamon scented candles in your house to bring in the aura of, a beautifully lived in home. And now all of a sudden you've got your one out of the three buyers that were interested in your house. You've decided that the down payment is 10%, it's a $90,000 first, and you've got a 7% interest rate on the deal, or 7% interest rate. But instead of doing 180 months or 240 months, you decided that 360 months was the perfect deal for them. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that the majority of the deals out there are 30-year terms. Now, why is that? I think it's one of those things where people are accustomed to it from the traditional lending side of things. Like most people will go out and get 30-year mortgages on house. So I'm going to sell this house. I'm going to give them a 30-year mortgage on this house. Okay, makes sense. I showed you in the earlier episodes, if you shorten that time frame up, it really doesn't change that payment too much, and it actually benefits the home buyer. And yes, it cuts out a little bit of interest on your part, but it also shortens the term for them. They pay off their house faster, which means that they'll reach a point of financial freedom much quicker as well, which is also a whole nother conversation we'll save for another episode someday. So this being said, $90,000 first, 7% interest, 360-month terms. And let's just say you've had it for 24 months. It's been a fun ride, but it's the only note you got. You've tried a few others, people ended up paying you cash, or they did the note thing, but then they came along and they ended up financing out of the deal. Long story short, this is your lone survivor. This is your last deal that you have in your portfolio. And you'd rather just get rid of it so you can go buy your boat. 24 months, your balance on this is $88,105, 7% interest, 336-month term remaining, 24 months have taken place, and the payment's still the same, $598.77. Now let me just be really clear. Something just popped in my head here. When I buy a note, or you buy a note, or anybody else buys a note from somebody else, we cannot change the terms of that deal, period. Now, there is one way we could change the terms of that deal, and that is if the borrower comes back to the table and requests a change in terms, or there's also known as a loan modification takes place. I can tell you in the performing note space, the performing note box, the $1.7 trillion industry, I would say that that happens less than 1% of the time. Okay, not very commonplace. People settle into what I call their norm, paying $598, $77 a month, and they just go on down the road. They're not looking for it to go up. They're not looking for it to go down. Chances are they very seldom will actually accelerate the loan. Now, I've seen this in some cultures. I'm just going to tap into this for those of you who may be asking, why wouldn't they pay it down? There are some cultures out there that will pay down the loan on their house at a very expeditious rate, okay? And they'll have 2 or 3 families living in the house. They'll pool their money together every month. They'll make 2 or 3 payments every month, and they'll pay off that house in, say, 7 years versus 30 years. Why? Because they don't want to be a slave to debt, okay? That does happen. I wouldn't say it's commonplace, except for certain cultures as a whole. Back to this here. So if I was to come along and purchase this note, and I was to purchase this at, say, a 10% yield, I'd purchase it for $67,432 is what I would pay for it. Now, that being the case, once again, going back to the scenario of AKA the down payment being 10%, so $10,000 down, $67,432 would be the purchase price on it after 24 months worth of payments. Now that's assuming, and that's will be, how do you say, figured out during due diligence, we are going to pull new credit, we are going to pull new values, we are going to pull title on the property all over again, even though you may have done it 24 months earlier. So we're going to pull that again, make sure the credit is at or above whatever you've represented it to be, ideally 600 or better. And if that changes, let's say we pull the credit and it's 525, then that offer would change as well, okay? You say the house is worth $100,000. We go out and we appraise it, and it comes back at, say, $90,000. So that would change the offer as well. So those are things that happen during due diligence. Now, I can tell you from personal experience that if you had the house appraised 2 years ago, you've had 24 months worth of payments, and I come along and buy the deal, and I have it appraised today, it's a very strong possibility that it's going to go up in value, not necessarily down in value, especially if you did the right things in the beginning. Credit, that's a whole nother ballgame because you don't have any control over the borrower's credit. Neither do I. Half the time, they don't even. And that also ties into the second statement that I want to make, or this next statement I want to make. And people will often ask me, well, Troy, if I hold this loan for a longer period of time, won't you give me more money for it? No, I won't. And the reason is because I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what the future of that borrower's credit is going to be. We know what it is today, but if they go out and they run up a bunch of charge cards or they open up a bunch of new charge cards, then chances are that credit's going to decline for a while, and they may bring it back up, aka paying those things off or making timely payments. We'll typically do that on a borrower's credit. Keep in mind that this borrower buying your house is buying it typically as a first-time home buyer, but they're definitely buying it as a new home buyer. Okay, what do new home buyers like to do? And it doesn't matter what their income bracket is. What do new home buyers like to do? They like to go buy more stuff to put in their house. That's what they do. What do? They run down to the local furniture store and they get 90 days same as cash things, or they go down to Home Depot and they open up a credit card and they start buying landscaping plants and whatever else they want to put in their house. And they go, it goes on and on and on. And that's pretty standard behavior with new home buyers. Why? Because I live in a neighborhood that we just did all that. I saw 181 new home buyers move into our neighborhood over the last 2 years. And guess what they did? Went out and bought a bunch of new stuff to put in their houses. And so I've seen it over and over and over again. So it happens at every economic level there. That will have an impact on that borrower's credit. And ideally, they make their payments on time, everything's fine, their credit score goes up, especially after 24 months. But back to what I originally said. Hey, Troy, if I season this for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, 12 months, you'll pay me more money. There's no guarantee on that. And there's no note buyer out there that can guarantee you that, because we don't have a crystal ball, and neither do you. It's simply a roll of the dice to determine what that borrower's credit is. Here's the other thing to keep in mind, and I mentioned this a little bit ago. The other thing that dictates, what a payer will pay for it today, what a buyer will pay for it today, and what they'll pay for it in 12 months is cost of capital. I don't know what my cost of capital is going to be in 12 months. Neither do you. So that will also play a role in it down the road. Might it go down so your deal goes up? Yeah, that might happen. But it also might go up so your deal goes down. So keep that in mind. That's a choice you got to make. So back to this. So note purchase calculators. If I buy this at a 10% yield, we're going to pay $67,432.31. Okay. Let me show you some math on this. Okay. And why oftentimes discounts aren't as big or as horrendous as some people might like to think they are. So if I'm paying $67,432, can I jump over here? $67,432. Okay, that's your note price. Then your down payment is $10,000, because that's what you got back. And then you got 24 months times, here's my calculator. $24 times 598.77, $14,370. $14,370 plus 10,000 plus 67,432 equals $91,802. Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, so I'll just go here. Which one? Here? All right, great. So you're here at $91,802 is your number. That includes your sales price of the note price, down payment, $10,000, 24 times 590, what was it? 598, $14,370, $91,802. What was the note amount to begin with? It was $90,000. So you're actually over 100% of your note original starting balance. You're at 91% of your sales price of the property. So let's break down the 91% of sales price of the property. Because I'll agree, there's still a discount in there. But that 91% of the sales price of the property, if you or I put a property up for sale, whatever it is, let's just take this one here. We put up a $100,000 sales price on this property. We've done our values, we've done our inspections, we've done all those things. We've established it's worth $100,000. And somebody comes along, like say Ryan Harper, he comes along. He wants to drive a hard deal, hard bargain, hey Troy, I'll give you $95,000 for this house, cash, right now. Okay, $95,000 cash, no problem. No realtor involved, make a few dollars, close quickly. I get $95,000 versus 91. Would that be a deal that most people would take? Absolutely. The average discount on cash offers around nationwide. Now this is the Board of Realtors, the American Board of Realtors Association, or Board of Realtors American Association, whichever one it is. The Board of Realtors, they typically average somewhere right around 5 to 5.5% cash discounts on houses. Okay, so that being said, it's not really outside of things. Now let's say that's a deal between Ryan and I. But now let's say there's another deal. I take that same house, same scenario, $100,000 sales price, and I list it with a realtor. Pretty common in business and in real estate. And that realtor wants, say, 5% for listing the house. They're going to take 2, they're going to give 3 to the buyer's agent, so we've settled on 5. Great. Now they've come to the table. I'm giving up 5% to realtors. Now all of a sudden I got a cash buyer coming to the table, and that cash buyer saying, hey, you know what? I want a discount, and I don't really care that you have a realtor involved because that's a contract between you and them. It doesn't involve me, but I want a 5% discount or I want a 4% discount. Even if it's 4%, that's another $4,000. So you got 5 for realtors, 4 for the cash discount. Now I'm at $9,000 discount plus closing costs as a whole. So now all of a sudden I'm sitting here at $90,000. Here's my point at the end of the day. It's not necessarily that somebody's taking a discount. It's how do you make the deal work to sell the property, to create cash flow, to create cash in your pocket, and then ultimately, how does that compare to other traditional ways? Could you have sold this house through a realtor? Maybe, maybe not. Could you have sold it to just a straight up cash buyer? Maybe, maybe not. But as a whole, it's not as though anybody's quote unquote losing money. You didn't really lose any money. You got cash flow, $14,000 worth of cash flow for the last 2 years. And you're at 91%. You're at 101% of what the note balance is. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. The balance on the note was at $88,105 when you brought it to me. But you traded $88,000, okay? Let me back this up. Where can I write? Where can I write? So the balance is 88, let me see, I like that, 105. Okay, but it's like $1,900, it's like a $1,900 discount from the $90,000 unpaid principal balance to what it is now. So you've traded $1,900, okay, of paid down, paid down on the balance for, wrong one, $14,370. $14,370. That's a huge rate of return. Hence, compound interest, the eighth wonder of the world. Don't believe me? Look it up. You can go to Wikipedia on that one. So here's the beauty of it. Have fun with this, guys. I mean, I love the note space. I love what we've been doing for 22, 23 years. I also know that it attracts a lot of very analytical minds. And I love the analytical minds, but more importantly, have fun with it. Like really, really have fun with it, because there's 1,000 different ways to do this, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time. But it really is up to you to decide which way that works best for you as a whole. Don't try and, oftentimes I'll see people say, well, $67,000 isn't enough money. I want $74,000, or I want this, or I want that. And so they'll go shop their deal all over the industry. Well, just kind of a FYI, all of us buyers kind of know each other. We've been in the same fraternity for 22 plus years. So we have a pretty good idea who's doing what, when, where, and how. And our cost of capital, we all kind of get it from the same people. So there's really no mystery to that. And as a whole, if you go shopping it around the industry, we just talk to each other, so we know what's going on. And it's not as though anybody's pulling any wool over our eyes. You're not going to get ahead on that. And if anything, what's ultimately going to happen is your borrower's credit's going to get pulled several times. The credit score is going to go down. You'll settle on somebody for a higher price. But keep in mind, the higher price dictates a higher value property, a higher value file, because we're buying the paperwork and the overall organization side of it. And ultimately, you're going to have to jump through more hoops to get a higher price. And in the end, it may not happen for you as a whole. So just kind of FYI. So the most amount of money, my point being there is that just because you get a high offer doesn't necessarily mean that's the best road for you. And what oftentimes is people will go down that road for 2 or 3 months trying to close a deal that they need to close in 2 weeks, and finally get frustrated, irritated, and then circle back. And then we have to start all over again. So just kind of FYI. All right. So ultimately, you're trading $19,000 balance reduction for $14,000, 67, 10, and 14, $91,000 on the deal. You did really well. You made some great cash flow, and ultimately minimize your deduction. You gained all your money up front. We're going into time value of money. We're going to be collecting on $88,000 for the next 336 months. Okay, 336 months. Now I'm going to go long on this one because another idea just popped into my head. And so the balance here is so keep in mind here, 88,105. It's another perspective on this. This is your unpaid balance, okay? That's what we're buying for $67,432. Now, I'm buying it for $67,432. I'm just going to round down purchase price, which leaves you see here, clear 88, 105, oh, there, minus 67, 432. $20,673. This is minimum wage money. Okay, this is like below minimum wage money because I'm going to spend the next 336 months collecting that money. 336 divided by 12. I'm going to spend the next 28 years collecting $20,000 on a deal. That's why time value of money works. That's why people sell notes. So even though you're taking a discount, and that discount might seem huge, say in this case $20,000, aka maybe 20% on a deal, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm getting $20,000 today. I'm waiting for my 20 grand for the next 28 years. I don't know what minimum wage is in your neck of the woods, but that's below minimum wage in my neck of the woods as a whole. So keep that in mind. Now, I know that there's things people say, well, you know, they could refi, they could do this, they could do that. You're right. They could refi. They could sell the house. They could go this way, they could go that way. But there's no guarantee and there's no way of forcing anybody to do those kinds of things. Not that I ever would. Point being is that that's a homeowner's choice. And if the homeowner chooses to stay in that house for the next 28 years and make their payments, my overall return is $20,000 plus interest. Now, keep in mind here, there's also a cost to capital factor in everything that I do. Every note investor out there has a cost to capital factor. And we're going to get into more of that on the next episode. All right, guys, take care.